Hello, I'm Andy Burke, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Friday the 7th of November.
Gets the shot off, it's found the back of the net. Midtjylland have opened up a 3-goal advantage in the space of little more than 5 minutes here in Denmark. It's Midtjylland 3, Celtic 0.
We'll round up all the action from another sobering night in the Europa League and take a look ahead to another huge weekend of Scottish Premiership action.
Corner kick, Hearts, left-hand side. Kizarides whips it in, glancing header from Braga, and it's in the back of the net. And Hearts have their fourth goal.
Can Hearts, the runaway leaders, continue their march towards the Premiership title? And at the other end of the table, are Livingston already staring down the barrel of a dreaded must-win against Falkirk this weekend?
Goal! Yeah, it's been just a hopeful ball, just turned down the side by Montano. He stuck it in the far corner. 3-1 Livingston.
We'll fill you in all the weekend action.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Right, delighted to be joined this morning by Rory Loy, the former Rangers, Dundee, Falkirk and St Mirren player. Rory, how are you getting on?
Not too bad, Andy. Hope you're well.
Very well, thank you. And we're also joined by Robbie Neilson, former manager of Hearts, Dundee United and currently working in Belgium with Lomo. How's things going out there, Robbie?
Oh, good, Andy. Thanks, mate. Yeah, good morning.
Good to have you with us. Lads, we'll start with the European action last night. Robbie, what did you make of it? A very difficult night for Celtic and Rangers and Aberdeen managing to get a point in Cyprus.
Yeah, I thought it was another tough night in Europe for us, to be honest with you. I thought I watched most of the Rangers and Celtic games, caught a bit of the Aberdeen one, who I actually thought did the best out of the three. Potentially could have won it right at the end with a chance they had, but I just felt that, when you watched especially the Rangers game, kind of got outclassed by Roma, which, top end of the Serie A is to be expected, but I just felt they had a couple of gears to go, and probably the Celtic Midtjylland game was the toughest one to take because, you'd expect Celtic to go there and put on a better performance, but they kind of get outclassed as well. So, yeah, disappointing night for us again.
Yeah, Rory, I mean, for Celtic and Martin O'Neill, I suppose the honeymoon period has come to a bit of an abrupt halt after that game.
Yeah, ever so slightly. I think there was a bit of optimism there. It was always going to be a tough game. Midtjylland have started the Europa League campaign extremely well, top of the tree, and I think there was a little bit of optimism from Celtic fans to see if they could continue the momentum, but never transpired that way, which is unfortunate. And for Rangers, I think the whole idea was to try and make them harder to beat. And I do understand they were playing Roma. They stuck with the three at the back. However, they were far too easy to beat at times, unfortunately, as well. But well done to Aberdeen for getting a strong point out against Larnaca, who started well.
Right, lads, let's throw it forward to this weekend and two matches on Saturday in the Scottish Premiership, two massive matches. Falkirk versus Livingston, the 3 o'clock kick-off. And Robbie, Falkirk have been in pretty good form, getting themselves into the top six, and they'll be looking to continue that. Yeah,
I think John McGlynn's done a fantastic job. The last couple of years getting the double promotions and then coming into the Premier League, and probably, to be honest, been expected to be doing the lower echelons, but they've continued to play the way they've done for the last 2 years, which is credit to John and his team. And a great win last week against Killie. Back at home at the weekend, the crowd there has been phenomenal as well, and they've really got behind them. So, I think it's a great opportunity for Falkirk to kick on again, and it could push into even higher into the league. Tough one for Livy, Davies found it difficult this year. But again, they'll be looking at it as an opportunity. These are the games that they need to pick up points if they're going to stay in the league. So, yes, it's got the makings of a very good game.
Yeah, it has been tough for Livingston on the return to the top flight. Rory, what have you made of them so far this season, and how worried do you think Livingston fans should be at this point? Still a long way to go, of course, but what have you made of them so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's November, the start of November, so I don't think anyone at any club will be getting too disparaged at this moment in time. In terms of Livingston, you can look at it one of two ways. You've been slightly unfortunate to lose quite a few last gasp goals. However, if it is happening continuously, it's maybe something they want to look at. They got their last gasp goal against Hibs last week, so to make it 2 each themselves, so they might see that as a springboard to go on and pick up more points. I think they've got a good squad. I say they'll be okay, but I also think the likes of Falkirk will be okay, and then Dundee pick up the odd result. I think it's a very, very difficult season to pick an outstanding candidate who's going to kind of potentially get marooned at the bottom or be relegated. So I think it'll be a really exciting run-in, but I think Livingston will pick up more than enough points to be very competitive. I don't think they'll near the top 6 this year. However, I do expect them to be in a bit of a fight most of the season, but it's a very, very difficult one to call, and it's going to be intriguing to see how it plays out. But I think they've got a good squad, a good manager there, and I think when it comes to the back end of the season, David Martindale's he's got the experience to get results.
Yeah, well, this is a good point, Robbie. David Martindale's been there and done it before. Obviously, last time the Premiership couldn't quite guide them away from trouble, but that experience of being in these situations, I suppose, as the season goes on, it does become very important for a manager.
Yeah, it does, to having that experience which Davey's got, but as Rory touched on there, we're in November and nobody will be panicking at Livy, especially Davey. He knows there's a lot of games to go. He's got a transfer window to come up as well. So, it's a really difficult one to call this year in the league. There isn't any teams that are kind of, I think, will go adrift. And there's probably 4 or 5, 6 potentially teams that could be in the mix at the bottom. So, I think it's early days, but I think these are the games that both Livy and Falkirk would have looked at the start of the season and said, look, these are ones we would really want to pick up points.
Well, that's at 3 o'clock, 5:45, St Mirren versus Hibs. Hibs third in the league, and on the one hand, you could say if they want to maintain that, these are the type of games they want to be winning, Rory. But as we know, Paisley is such a difficult place to go, as the league leaders' Hearts have found out on a couple of occasions this season.
Yeah, I think that's got all the makings to be an absolutely cracking game. I really do. Andy, St Mirren, I covered that game for Sports Sound at the weekend. They were phenomenally good. Really, really good. The standard of finishing in that game was outstanding. The calmness from Mandaron to slot in the last one. Lundulu's turn and strike. Killian Phillips getting very unlucky with the flick up the thigh and the volley off the bar. I know Stephen Robinson is not particularly enamoured with the reputation that St Mirren are a long ball team. I don't know if anyone's described them as that as such. They are direct, they play in the right areas, and they have good quality. They're a big side. And as for Hibs will need to go there and try and overcome that challenge of St Mirren's physicality and quality, and get the ball down and play, because they're a right good footballing side, but at times they've been a bit inconsistent with it. They are third in the league. I just think in terms of Hibs at this moment in time, losing that last minute goal last week, I don't think it's helping that Hearts are doing so well, and Robbie will speak about that better. But I mean, sitting third in the league at this point, for David Gray is not a bad start to the season. It's something to build on. They'll have their own aspirations of trying to finish. I think first will be beyond them, second in the league. Celtic and Rangers struggling ever so slightly, but I just think Hearts are grabbing all the attention, and that's working against Hibs a little bit. In terms of the game itself, it's a tough one to call.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, that, Robbie, and you'll know about that. How much your work with your team is judged through the prism of what's going on across the city.
Yeah, I think Rory's 100% right there, to be honest with you. It's, if you'd asked David Gray at the start of the season by November, would he take third place and would he be delighted? He'd have grabbed your hand off for it. He's there looking at who's above him. So it's yes, it definitely has an effect. When you look at the game down at Love Street, it's so tight. You get St Mirren in 8th, Hibs in 3rd, but there's only 5 points between the teams. So again, it just shows how competitive the league is this year. But I think Hibs have had a good season. I certainly think they have so far. I just think it's getting overshadowed by Hearts, and they'll be hoping that Hearts can fall a bit and they can continue to push forward. So yeah, it's been a good season, but again, the game at the weekend will be super tough. And Paisley, always a very, very tough place to go. I think that people talk about the style of play at St Mirren, but they play really good football once they get into the final third. It's just they've chosen a way to get it in there. So football's different. Every club plays differently. Every club wants a different style of football, and ultimately it's about winning. And Stephen's found a way of doing that by they get the ball in there, but once they're in there, they've got some really, really good players that can get off, as Rory says, get opportunities and score goals.
I think as well, if you look 7-8 weeks ago, Hibs over 2 legs against Midtjylland were really good, Robbie. Very competitive, and I think I know Midtjylland will have progressed slightly, played some more games, etc. But when you look at those 2 legs, and Celtic going over there and struggling, Hibs are as close to Celtic Rangers as they've been in a long, long time. So, they'll probably take heart from the fact that they went out to Midtjylland and were so competitive. And looking at that last night, it'll probably give them more reason to feel that they can slowly start to make an impact in the league themselves.
Right, let's look at Sunday's matches, guys. The league leaders Hearts up against Dundee United at Tynecastle, 3 o'clock. And on the one hand, Robbie, you could say the top of the league brings pressure with every match, but for Derek McInnes and Hearts, they seem to be revelling in it at the moment, that pressure of being the league leaders.
Yeah, I think they've handled the pressure very well so far. I think these are the type of games where they're probably expected to win. Dundee United are probably expected to go there and try and shut up shop and get something out of the game. So these are the games that they've got to go and win if they really want to go and compete and win the league. I think Tynecastle will be absolutely rocking. So Dundee United will need to really set up well at the start of the game to make sure they can get a foothold, because you look at the game last week where I thought Dundee played really well for the first 20, 30 minutes. And then Lon Shanklin gets a goal out of nowhere and the whole environment changes. The fans get behind them and they go on to win comfortably 4-0. So it's a great opportunity again for Hearts. They play before Celtic, I think it's an hour before. So potentially if they get a result, they can go 12 clear and put an enormous amount of pressure on Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying throughout this very early days, Rory, but 12 points is a significant enough gap. I mean, that's got to plant a little seed of doubt in the Celtic minds if Hearts can put down that marker.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone's concentrated on the fact that could Hearts win the league this year, how good they are, but sometimes their actual play gets overlooked because everyone wants to look at will they still be in it come January, February, March. Just enjoy the moment, enjoy watching them, because I think they're absolutely phenomenal to watch. Kizarides and Shankland and Braga and all these guys have been a breath of fresh air. So it's you actually look forward to watching Hearts, going and watching them. Hibs to an extent as well, but Hearts have been phenomenal. They have. I mean, when the pressure comes on, if they are still in the mix January, February, March time, it becomes more of a mentality thing than a quality thing. And that'll be an interesting scope to see how they cope with that. As for this weekend, I expect them to beat Dundee United, who are a good side. But such as the form Hearts are in, I think it'll be tough for Dundee United.
Yeah, well, what do you think, Robbie? Dundee United have been solid enough, a wee bit up and down, but do you think Jim Goodwin will be thinking they can go there and take something from Tynecastle?
Yeah, obviously they've had a couple of really good seasons, and this one's been a wee bit kind of up and down, as you say. They're sitting 7th. A win takes them into 6th, so Jim will be looking at that as an opportunity before they get into an international break to try and get into that top 6. I think that Jim sets his teams up really well defensively. That's one thing about Jim, is they're usually really strong, they're organised, they know exactly what they're doing, and I'm sure he'll have a plan to go to Tynecastle tactically. The biggest problem you have when you're playing against Hearts is individual quality. You give, like I said last week, Dundee set up really well, defensively strong, playing in a back 5, shutting everything down. Lon Shanklin picks up on his left foot from 25 yards and smashes in the bottom corner. And there's not a lot you can do about that. So it's the individual quality that will be the difficulty for Dundee United on Saturday, because I think Jim will have them set up really, really well, really strong, try and kill the game and go there and hopefully pick up a point. That's what we'll be looking at, a couple of points, but I think it'll be a tough one.
Aberdeen host Motherwell, that's also at 3 o'clock. Where do you see Aberdeen at the moment right now, Rory? It seems Jimmy Talleen has been kind of trying to keep the wolves from the door for some time. They're just not able to get that consistency of results. I'm sure they'll have taken heart from a point on the road in Europe during the week, but where do you see that team under Jimmy Talleen at the moment?
Well, it's amazing how, after such a poor run, it's so hard to shake the notion that they're on a bad run. They've won 3 from 4 in the league. I think the Europa Conference League's been a bit more of a hindrance than a help lately. I know they got the point over in Larnaca. That'll hopefully give them confidence. Jimmy Tilleen or Aberdeen and teams in general have struggled massively. The conference team, whether it's been Hearts, whether it's been Aberdeen, to come back to the league and pick up the results desired to get to where they want to be. But they've won 3 of their last 4. They've won away in Kilmarnock, away in Paisley, where other teams have not been able to do that. So if they can go on and win this at the weekend, 4 from 5 takes them right up the league. And you know, the story of Aberdeen struggling starts to change ever so slightly. So it'll be an interesting one, but Motherwell have beaten them twice. I was at the game up at Pittodrie. Motherwell with a better team. Don't get me wrong, Aberdeen missed a couple of unbelievable chances in the first half, but again, it's a tough one to call. It is, but if Motherwell, who were very underwhelming at the weekend at Hampden, don't perform, Aberdeen will be looking to take advantage of that.
Yeah, well, where do you see Motherwell on the other side of things, Robbie? They've had a lot of plaudits for their style of football, perhaps not been delivering the results they feel they deserve. As Rory says, it was such a disappointment at Hampden. But the recent record is good at Pittodrie. Is it maybe the perfect game to bounce back?
Yeah, I think that they'll obviously be really disappointed with the result last week. Going into the game, I actually quite fancied them against St Mirren because I just felt that the big pitch at Hampden, open space, they play some really good football. They like to play out from the back. I thought it suited them, but they just couldn't handle the pace, the power and the finishing of St Mirren. I think that, again, it's a tough game for them because Aberdeen have definitely picked up, as Rory touched on there. I think these European campaigns, especially for teams out with the Old Firm, and to an extent even the Old Firm nowadays, it's very, very difficult to go and travel and have these highs of Europe to then travel back and then play on a Sunday and try and pick yourself back up again. So I think it's a great opportunity for Motherwell to go up to Aberdeen and do what they've done recently in years, to go there and win. And I think they'll be pretty confident. The style they play, I really like it. I think he's really stuck to his guns about how he plays, because it's very easy, especially in Scottish football, where criticism comes quickly after a poor game or a result, to change. And he's got his philosophy, and the players seem to have bought into it, the fans have bought into it, and it's now about trying to consistently pick up points.
Well, the last of the 3 o'clock kickoffs in the Premiership on Sunday, Dundee hosting Rangers. This is an intriguing one, Rory. Rangers under Danny Rowell started well. Obviously, the Old Firm defeating the Cup semi-final. Roma, too good, probably as expected in the Europa League. And Dundee have managed to pick off some big results at home, not least against Celtic a couple of weeks ago. How do you see this one shaping up at Dens Park?
Dundee have been a strange team this season. So difficult to predict how they're going to play, what they're going to do, because they've had some heavy beatings. I know they did play well in the first 20-25 minutes, as Robbie said, and Hearts' quality picked them off in the end. But the match against Celtic, they were fantastic. The lad Congreve was the standout. I think he has been since he's come into the team. So if Dundee can turn up, play their stuff in the big occasion like they have done when it's been on the telly before, then Rangers will be in for a game. And I don't think it's ideal for Rangers coming off the back of Thursday. Again, confidence. Team selection's a big one when it comes to Rangers. Some strange choices. Jiga, you don't want to be too harsh on players, because I've been there and went through some difficult periods myself, but Big Jiga just doesn't look up to it. And I think if Dundee see his name in the team sheet, along with Aaron's, they'll feel that there's goals to be had there. So it's a difficult one to call again. I think Rangers will probably just have enough, but I would definitely have thought Celtic would have had enough. So that'll be the message from Stephen Presley. Turn up, play your stuff. No reason why they can't get a result.
Yeah, it's amazing what Rory's saying there, Robbie, about some of the weak links in the Rangers team, which are guys that have arrived in the summer. They've spent a lot of money in the summer, and yet a lot of Rangers fans are looking at that team and saying, get us to the January transfer window, because we need a bit of an overhaul, which is exactly what they've just had last summer. How do you assess where the Rangers team is at the moment and the job that Danny Rowell's got in his hands?
Yeah, I think the difficulty Danny Rowell's got at the moment is he's not getting a lot of time to spend on the training pitch. He's from what I've heard, he's a fantastic coach and really good on the training pitch. But when you have a European campaign, you don't get any time on it, really, because they'll probably travel this morning, they'll do a tiny bit of prep this afternoon, some tomorrow, and then they need to perform at the week on Sunday. So this little period is difficult. I think getting through the game at the weekend, it gives them that international break. I'm not sure how many players will go away. Sometimes you lose half your squad and it makes it difficult again. So I think the recruitment's been done. There's no point, Rangers and Danny Rowe moaning about it. It's been done. He's got to make the best he can out of what they've got at the moment, and it's about getting to January in the best condition they can. Whether that be, tactically trying to get some time to work with the players and get his system. Because as Rory said, that I feel a wee bit at the moment he's changing players and personnel to have a look at them, because they're not really getting a chance to look at them potentially within training games because of the game. So yeah, it's a difficult period for them, but I think it'll be a tough game. I think that Dundee under Stephen Presley have been up and down, but in the bigger games where they've not been expected to have a lot of the possession, they've been set up very, very well. And especially against Celtic, the set plays, fantastic at it to get the goal, they counter-attack well as well. I think they'll revert back to that style again, because after they played Celtic, I think they went to Aberdeen and played a bit more expansive, probably got ahead of where they should be, as in, playing that type of football, and reverted back to that. And I think that it'll be a really tough game for Rangers on Sunday, because they'll be tough to beat Dundee.
Well, the final match of the Scottish Premiership weekend, Celtic versus Kilmarnock, 4 o'clock kickoff at Celtic Park. I wonder, Rory, how much of a dent do you think the confidence will have taken from the game in Michelin? And obviously such a blow losing Callum Osman to that injury as well. It was just such a difficult night for Celtic. But do you think that'll have too much an effect, or do you think in Martin O'Neill they've got the right guy to pick everyone up around the place?
Yeah, well, he's certainly got tons and tons of experience at doing it. First of all, I feel for Callum Osmond. I know he was signed from Fulham, but I know just how difficult it is to try and break through at the old firm clubs in terms of, having been a younger lad and trying to break through and whatever else. So to get your opportunity to take it and then to suffer that injury, I hope he gets back quickly. I hope his recovery's good, and I hope he can get himself back in the team before Celtic sign too many players, because he'd earned himself an opportunity there to really make a mark on the team and put his name on the team sheet. So to have that taken away from his crew. In terms of the game itself, Celtic, I don't think they'll be too despondent. They've had 2 really good results domestically, and it's they're not the first or the last team that will go to Michelin this year and be beaten. The manner of the defeat slightly concerning, but overall I don't think they'll be too hung up on things when it gets to Sunday. And Kilmarnock are really struggling, so I do think Celtic will have more than enough to win, probably comfortably.
Yeah, Kilmarnock are struggling at the moment, Robbie. They're sitting 10th in the Premiership, although the league table is just so bunched up that I think you mentioned earlier, a couple of results can change things very quickly. But where do you see where Killie are at the moment under Stuart Kettlewell, and how big a job has he got to get them up that table?
Yeah, I think Killie are in that probably group of 6 or 7 teams that are going to yo-yo every week at the moment. The league is so tight. I think, 4 or 5 weeks into the season, I think they were sitting third, and they were playing fantastic. Everyone's happy. You go fast forward 5-6 weeks, and now we're looking at 10th in the league. But actually, where they are points-wise isn't that far off, even potentially a Hibs or a Rangers when you look at it. So, I think, again, we're in November. I don't think anyone at Kilmarnock will be panicking. That's, their objective this season would probably be, can we get in the top 6? They're not far off it. So I think they'll be looking at the game Saturday. And Sunday. It's a very, very tough one. But with Celtic coming off the back of a difficult European result, I'm sure Stuart will be building confidence in the team to go and try and get a result.
Yeah, very interesting weekend in the Scottish Premiership coming up, guys. Been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks to Rory and Robbie. That's all we've got time for. The weekend football coverage starts tonight at 7:30 on the BBC Scotland channel. Coverage of Airdrie versus Partick Thistle, and also watch out for the halftime feature with Dougie Imrie, a genuinely powerful and very emotive interview, so keep your eyes out for that. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. But for now, from Rory, from Robbie and from me, thanks for listening.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.